15th Annual SUNY Oneonta Athletic Hall of Fame Ceremony. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. My name is Tracy Ritter. I'm the Athletic Director here at Oneonta. And today we'll enshrine our highest achievers into our Hall of Fame and celebrate the pride and traditions we hold so dear in college athletics. The SUNY Oneonta Athletic Hall of Fame exemplifies the greatest athletic triumphs in our university's history and also allows us to celebrate the leadership of men and women of vision that have led us to this place in time. SUNY Oneonta was established in 1889, and it is recorded in the spring of that very first year, our students organized an athletic association for baseball. Athletics are a window to our university, and 21 different sports were created and grew from there, weaving a tapestry of history into our university's narrative for the past 124 years. Today, we honor and recognize another class of self-starting individuals who embody the value-driven skills so evident in the college athlete. We established the Athletic Hall of Fame in 1999, and it's my honor right now to recognize previously inducted Hall of Famers who are in the audience today. I would ask that they stand and please hold your applause until I complete this wonderful list. The class of 1999, Ted Mears. He is here somewhere. The class of 2000, Mr. Don Ball and Mr. Garth Sam. Please stand. The class of 2001, Don Excel and Tina Gracie and Roger Ritter. The class of 2002, Ronald Hagan. The class of 2003, Don Llewellyn, Don Jester. The class of 2006, Kramer Harrington, Ed Leon. The class of 2007, Jan Miller. The class of 2008, Thomas Kalistra. The class of 2009, Vincent Fody. The class of 2010, Jim Baker, Dick Berg, Sandy Jones, and Alicia Lang. The class of 2011, Christine Fitzpatrick Monfort. The class of 2011, David Rainier. I think Coach McGrath is in the office too, in the audience as well, Liz McGrath. Please give a warm round of applause. So much for coming back and continuing to inspire our student athletes. There are many of them in the audience today. An event like this cannot take place without the help of a very dedicated group of professional staff, faculty, and friends of athletics. Could I please ask the Hall of Fame Committee to please stand for us? They work tirelessly all year long identifying our greatest athletes in our history. The Hall of Fame Committee, please stand. Good job. Thank you. Very special thanks also goes to our Associate Athletic Director, Brian Jessup, who's in the audience. Brian, would you please stand? Can't do it without Brian. And on the stage here with me, our Assistant Athletic Director and Sports Information Director, who's going to be the MC of today's event, Jeff Passer. Thank you so much. Our president is on the stage with me, along with our vice president for student development, Dr. Perry, who truly are the vision for making our experience for student athletes at this college incredible. And thank you so much for everything you do. Last but not least, I want to thank our very dedicated coaches who are in the audience, who push our student athletes every day to achieve more than they really believe is possible. And so this event is being broadcast, webcast nationally, And so as we get started, I want to say a very warm hello to our alumni everywhere, and a special hello to the Hall of Fame family members who couldn't be in attendance today. And with that, let's get started. I'd like to introduce our wonderful president, Dr. Nuttall.
But I want to welcome you all here today. This is a wonderful, wonderful event where we celebrate our achievements of our wonderful athletes. And I want to make an observation because it's often the case that when we think about what athletics does, we think about what it does for the individual competitor. And it is true, and I was just reminded this morning from talking to some of our inductees from this year's class, how athletics adds to not only the educational experience of the students while they're here, but you get all those life skills like setting goals, perseverance, especially in the face of adversity, teamwork, and flexibility. So you really do get a lot as individuals by participation in athletics. But from the point of view of the president, it also adds so much to the college. To the college as a whole, it binds us all together in a spirit of community, gives us pride in our achievements, and really helps to create a sense of togetherness and a sense of forward motion. So it's not only a benefit for the people who participate in it and for the fans who watch it, but for the whole institution. Athletics is really an integral part of what we are and how we want to build individuals and also build our whole institution. So I want to congratulate our inductees this year and thank them and thank all of you who have come back for creating the intergenerational bonds that keep us in continuity, that keep us in conversation from one time period to another. Thinking back to the way the institution used to be 25 or 30 years ago, and seeing how we have many of the same values and aspirations today. So congratulations to our inductees, and thank you all for joining us to celebrate them and to celebrate their marvelous achievements. Now, some of you know I'm recovering from surgery, so I'm not going to be able to stay for the ceremony, but I wanted to be with you today just to add my words of welcome and thanks. Thank you very much.
Nobody could have said that better. Isn't she wonderful? We're going to have a new format, and I hope that you really enjoy this. For those of you who come back every year for this, we're doing it a little bit differently, and I want to thank Jeff Hazard, our sports information director, who is the brains behind this new format. I think you're in for a really great treat. Jeff, who is going to be our MC tonight, I would just like to give him a brief introduction. He's been here at the college for just 15 years now. He started the Hall of Fame for us. He is the chair of the Hall of Fame committee. Last year, he was the president of the ECAC CITA organization as well. And so, like many of our coaches, we all are aspiring at the national level and really helping to direct Division III. And so, with that said, I won't wait another minute. Let's start this ceremony, and let me bring Jeff Hazard to the stage.
You can just bear with us for a moment. We just have to move a couple of the stage props so we can open the stage a little bit. Good morning. Welcome. Thank you all for coming. It's great to see so many smiling faces this early in the morning, and it's great to see our Hall of Famers in the audience, so thank you for coming. This is the fun part of the day, although they gave me a microphone, so that might be a bad thing, I don't know. But we're going to celebrate 7 individuals who distinguished themselves. One as an administrator and an athletic trainer, and the other 6 as student athletes here for us at SUNY Oneonta. And of course, back then we know it was called Oneonta State, but it's SUNY Oneonta, and we are so happy to have you here, and it's going to be a great day. So we're going to start right off. Our first inductee was our first full-time hired athletic trainer here at the college, and actually took care of some of these athletes that we're inducting today. And when they saw him here and they were going into the same class as him, it was just great to see him because the memories just come back. And that's really what we're going to share today. We're going to share memories of being a student athlete here at SUNY Oneonta. So without further ado, I'd like to bring up and welcome our first inductee, David Bailey.
I didn't do it.
Certainly welcome and congratulations. Quite an honor, and it's great to see you. I know you've been back at some of our other ceremonies in years past because those athletes you knew and you wanted to be here to support them and just to memory and things like that. So for you, now you were here in the 60s and 70s, which was kind of a changing time here on campus. And why don't you talk a little bit about some of the memories that you have from when you were here?
Well, I was thinking about this as it came in this morning. It's kind of like the worst of times and the best of times. We had some great athletes and good teams, but at that particular time, Title IX came into effect. We were in the gym across the street here, the Chase Gym, limited facilities and lots of coaches and teams that wanted the facility at the same time. So there was always that tension, but I think it made us better since we kind of had to give and take to make sure the product that we had, the teams that competed at the national level, could hold their own. It helped with that, I think.
Now, can you give us a story about some of your experiences with some of the teams? I know you shared a couple last night. You said you had a lot of stories, which I'm sure you do, but can you give us maybe 1 or 2 from that time?
Well, I think I should make recognition of a team that we had in the 60s that went undefeated and will never get recognized by the Hall of Fame committee. That was the faculty basketball team that competed for 3 years in the intramural league, and we never lost. Of course, we were rigged because Garth Stam, 6'8", Ed Kassler, 6'6".
Gary Hallway.
Yeah, and leading scorer from Ithaca College, Mark, and Gary Hallway, a leading scorer from Albany State, and Keith, what's his name? I've drawn a blank. Keith McCarthy, an Hall of Famer from 1950s, and Don Flewelling and Don Axtell also played, And then once in a while, they let me get up off the bench. But anyhow, we had a lot of fun. And it helped with our cohesion as far as a coaching staff.
Right. Now, I do know that that tradition was carried on because when I first got here, there was still a faculty team, and we still never lost to the students, which is kind of amazing that they would carry on that tradition because Garth, we used to play in the noontime hoops, so these guys are still playing, and it's always a lot of fun. Anyone you'd like to thank?
Well, one in particular, and a group in particular. One was a young lady that I brought to this campus in 1952 when she enrolled as a freshman. She had just been voted in our high school graduating class as the most beautiful. She still is in my eyes. That's my wife, Lona. We've been married. We've just celebrated our 58th wedding anniversary. Our first year of marriage, we lived in Oneonta. She was a senior. I worked in Kingston and commuted on weekends, but we participated in the activities in the undergraduate curriculum of the college. And that kind of is unique, I think, because I've been here when there were no facilities at all on this hill. The only thing up here was Morris Hill and the home ec building. And then when we were here, we went to the basketball games at the Armory. We've been to the basketball games at the Chase Gym. We've been to the basketball games here. A complete change in the 61 years that we've been involved either directly or indirectly in the college. My wife graduated in '56. I have a niece that has graduated from, and she's here, Amy. And two of our granddaughters graduated from SUCO. So we've had this connection for a long time.
And is there, you said you wanted to thank a group. Is there anyone else, group of people that you wanted to thank?
Oh, yes. The Franklin family, they're the whole bunch here. Being a trainer and being a wife of a trainer is like being a single parent, raising 3 rambunctious kids all from kindergarten. When we came here, our oldest was in kindergarten. Our youngest was born in Oneonta after we got here. But Lona was pretty much a single parent because, especially on the weekends, Saturdays, I was never there. I was here, first one here, the last one to leave, with all the different teams. I was the only trainer. And our Franklin family, as I call them, they did as much as anyone to help raise our kids, and we give them thanks, particularly.
Well, and we'd like to thank you, and we'd like to congratulate you, and welcome to the Hall of Fame.
Thank you.
Certainly off to a great start here. Our next gentleman has the distinction of being our first men's tennis player that's going to be inducted into our Athletic Hall of Fame. He's a SUNY champion. He was an ECAC finalist and is still a nationally ranked men's tennis player. I mean, he said 2 weeks ago he was playing at a clay tournament, the grass tournament, and then a couple weeks he's going to another national tournament. So this gentleman has made tennis a lifetime venture, and we certainly want to welcome Mr. Alan Chaskin. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your memories of Oneonta, because, of course, you were here from 67 to 70. Again, the college was changing a lot. As Dave said, the facilities, weren't here at the time. Why don't you tell us about your memories of Oneonta?
Oh, geez. Well, first of all, I'd like to say I loved my experience at Oneonta. I can't think of any other place to go to. I look forward every time when we had a break just to get back to Oneonta. In fact, some of the breaks we had, I remember during a Christmas vacation, we were allowed to stay up here. And I played racquetball for a whole week, so it was great. Athletically, I really enjoyed it as well. And I just want to say a couple of words about Coach Kastler. I had Ed Kastler, who passed away a couple of years ago. He was an excellent coach, and better than that, an excellent person. One particular story about Ed I want to say is that Ed played on the professional Knicks before they became the Knicks. It was a precursor to the New York Knicks. And one day when we were out on the tennis courts, he said, "Would you guys like to see a Knicks game?" We said, "Yeah." And I've never seen a professional sports team before. So he took us to the Knicks game, and after the game, we actually walked down among the Knicks, and Willis Reed was playing at the time, and Walt Frazier, and all these great guys that I heard of and watched on TV, and we just looked at them and how tall they were. It's like walking through a field of redwoods. It was incredible. So, and he was just great. We used to have barbecues at his house, and what an excellent coach.
Yeah, you said that he was because I've met him as well. Had the fortune to meet him, and he was an imposing figure when you met him.
Yep.
But you said that he was a gentle soul.
A gentle giant. Yeah, he would hold your hand, and his hand was like this to your hand, but it was so gentle. Yep.
Now, is there any other particular stories that might stick out with you from your tennis experience here at Oneonta that you'd like to share with us?
One story that I'd like to tell is sort of a funny story. I don't know if my wife wants me to tell it, but we used to take a minibus, and sometimes we had captains or other students drive the minibus to Potsdam or whatever. Anyway, we took the minibus one year, and this happened a few times actually. One of our team members, his name was Richie LaSalle, and Richie LaSalle was a bio major, and he was taking parasitology. And what he had to do is find roadkill animals on the road and bring it to class and check for parasites. So every once in a while we'd say, "Stop the bus, stop the bus." And he would go out, get the dead animal, put it in the back of the car. We must have had 3 or 4 dead animals one trip. So that I had to tell that story. So,
did you win the matches? Did you win the matches?
We won most of our matches.
Wow, that's really great. And certainly, anyone else that you'd like to thank, while you're up here?
Well, I'd like to thank one of my friends and fraternity brothers and tennis team members also, Billy Greek, and also George Werthmuller, who's also in the Hall of Fame, and also Don Fruellen, who's also in the Hall of Fame, for even thinking about my name to be a Hall of Fame member. So I want to thank them.
Well, we don't forget about the greats. So congratulations and welcome to the Hall.
All right, thank you. Yeah.
Which picture is it? This guy right here. He told me he was going to bring the hair today, but he lied. He lied. Our next gentleman, our next Hall of Famer, was a member of our 76-77 men's basketball team that is also inducted into our Hall of Fame. They used to call these guys the high-flying, above-the-rim players back in the 70s, which is, that's the way they play now. So we certainly, he was an all-conference player, and that team was national runner-up in 1977, and he was named to the Final Four All-Tournament team, which kind of amazed me when I found this out. it was the only all-tournament team that he was ever named to. So you save your best for last, Ralph Christian. Welcome.
Thank you.
Why don't you tell us about your memories of Oneonta? Maybe a little bit about that 76-77 team and running through the tournament, because I know you beat some great teams.
There was one team that we wanted to beat, and that was Albany State. We would always beat Albany State here, but we never had the opportunity to go there to beat them. And Coach had said, if there was ever a team that could beat Albany at Albany, this was the team. But they weren't in our season to play at Albany, and we actually ended up going to Albany for the regional finals. And the most interesting thing about that is I think Oneonta has come a long way as far as facility, as far as what they bring to the table. But back then, we were the vagabonds, and the bus that we rode on broke down on the way to the game. And the funny thing about that is this, one of the players is Sully, 6'7". And we got in trouble because the bus broke down, so you have the basketball players out of the bus, and it's a two-way lane highway. So Sully decides to lay on the ground, and we put a coat over him. So he looked like he was dead. So people, you know what happens. You get rubberneckers that we actually caused a crash because as he was laying down, he moved his arm. And it actually, the car hit the other car, and Sully got up, and they were like, he was just dead a second ago. That was funny, but the thing was, it was such a win because if there was ever, even to go to the NCAA finals, that was the game that we wanted to win, and we won it for the coach because the coach wanted, Coach Don Swellen wanted that to happen. But after the game, it wasn't in the game. Mid-season, I broke my foot during the winter break, and Don Bailey, Dr. Bailey told, I went down to the trainer and I said, Doc, what did it look like? He says, you're done for the season. And I go, I can't be done for the season. I'm a senior. I can't be done for the season, Doc. He says, you broke the fifth metatarsal bone? You broke it and you're done. I said, Doc, I can't be done for the season. I'm playing. I said, what do I need to do? He says, stay off of it. So I did. So I stayed off of it, but I actually practiced with my right foot. I practiced so much with my right foot that my one calf muscle was bigger than the other one. And I actually developed 3 different speeds when I would actually play because I was favoring this when I actually came back. So I missed, I think, a game. And I actually played with a broken foot. And because if there was ever a team that could go all the way, that was the team. And I wanted it. But here's the ironic part, and this is the part that meant so much to me because I don't know how the games are played now, but when we played it across the street, when you started, you'd introduce the other team, and then the lights would go out, and then every player, the spotlight would come out, and you get out there, and it was such a feeling. And I'm like, I'm not starting anymore. And I'm like, Coach, and one day after one of the games, I said, Coach, can I talk to you for a second? And we're in his office, and he said, yeah. I said, I feel bad. I'm a senior, and I'm not starting anymore. And he says, okay, tell me what you really feel. I said, I'm not starting anymore. And he said to me, let me ask you a question. Do you finish the games, or are you in there when the game ends? I said, yes. He said, would you rather be in the beginning of the game or the end of the game? And he says, you kind of give us a push. This was a big psych play, I want you to know that, but it worked. Because what he did was he said, it's not how you start the game, it's how you finish the game. And so what he did was he got a scorebook out, he opened it up, and what they used to do is every time someone came into the game, they tallied how much time you spent. And what it ended up being was I ended up playing more than any other player. So it wasn't, if I started the game, I wanted to be in at the end of the game. And I want to thank Coach for that, because that's just something in which I had to get through my head. It was a paradigm shift that I had to go through, and I so much appreciate it, because I enjoyed coming off, and actually it didn't matter. It was so much fun, and winners never lose, and losers never win, and he made us be all winners.
And how has that transferred into your very successful business life? I mean, you're an entrepreneur now.
Yeah, I actually ran radio stations in Buffalo and Jacksonville, Florida. My number one station was a country radio station in Buffalo, New York, and to the point where in business, you're going to learn the higher you get, sometimes the closer you are to the door, depending on what it is. And so in that, we transitioned into independent business operators. And it's so special, because where you are now as students and who we are as people, you are as good as how you look in the mirror. You control your own destiny. And don't let anybody steal those dreams from you, because that's all about how you grow and where you want to go from here. And it's not the fact of what you can do. When you say you've done your best, it really isn't. And what you want to do with that is take that rubber band or a bow and arrow, because if you only stretch at a certain point, it'll go, it just won't go far. If you push it back a little bit further, it may go a little distant, but what happens when you stretch that all the way? And I challenge you to do that. When you don't think you can do it, you don't think you can do it, just go back a little further. You'll be amazed what happens when you can stretch your arms like that.
Well, and we certainly know that you did the best that you could, and knowing that story about the fifth metatarsal and going through that, but you're right, it's not how you start, it's how you finish.
Yes.
And congratulations, and welcome to our Hall of Fame.
I just want to I want to say one thing. This is my model that I actually live by now, and it's called Dream and Think Big. Work smart, not hard. Commit, believe, and achieve. And God bless you all, and I'd like to thank, first of all, I have to acknowledge my fiance and my family and friends there, but the gentleman, please stand up, Glenn, for a second. Everybody, if you don't know this is Glenn McIver. He played for SUNY Binghamton back at the same time I played, and he's my best friend. I've known him for all my life, and he just got inducted to the Hall of Fame this year, too.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Our next inductee, this is kind of a tennis theme this year. She's going to be our first women's player to be inducted into our Athletic Hall of Fame. As you can see, she played here in the 80s. Right, we're at the 80s with the hair, and her children who are in the studio, were in the audience. Where are you? They loved her hair. They said one of the daughters said she is definitely going to wear her hair like that. So she was a three-time SUNY champion. She finished her career record with 40 wins and only 5 losses. She went undefeated as a senior. Certainly one of our legends, Susan Ritter Monfort. Well, you shared a story with us last night about your experience here at Oneonta, and certainly we want to share some of those experiences. And why don't you tell us what your experience was like at Oneonta?
When I first got to Oneonta, I really did not know anybody up here. But I joined the tennis team, and after a couple of weeks, I was thinking, I think this is too much for me. I can't play tennis, academics, experience college life. So I called my dad at the time at a payphone in the Union, and I explained to him, I think I'm going to quit. I can't do all this. And after a few words that I won't say, he told me, he said, why don't you give it a shot, try for one season, work it out, you could do it, I know you can do it. and I stuck with it, and it was probably the best decision I ever made. And thanks.
Finishing up, and now you'll have to bear with us because we'll have to exchange the microphones now, so if you just bear with us on how we're getting through this. We certainly want a big thanks to our RSC people, Dave Easy, and that crew for helping us out. And for those of you who are videotaping on cell phones or anything like that, I mean, we'd appreciate it if you can forward any of this video to me, and we'll get it to Dave and Jared so that we can piece things together for the DVD that we're going to put together for our Hall of Famers, so we certainly appreciate any help in that area as well, so thank you. Well, we're at the part to where we just got to kind of like who you'd like to thank and as you, during your time here, so why don't you take a moment or two to tell us,
First, I'd like to thank Mrs. Carol Blazina, who's here. She was my coach while I was here. Is she here? Where is she? Is she not here? Good. Okay. And I'd like to thank my parents who are in the audience, who used to come up and watch my matches. And my husband, Tim, who's probably my biggest fan during this whole thing. And my 4 kids are here. They're 16, 14, 12, and 9, who have been having a great time here. And my sister Julie and Bob and Carly, who took the ride up here to back me up a little bit. So thank you guys for being here. Love you.
Thank you very much. Welcome to the Hall of Fame. And I'd like to bring up our next inductee, who is our only 3-sport athlete in this year's class. She participated in volleyball, basketball, and softball back in the early days when women's athletics here on this campus was really starting to blossom. And she was one of our outstanding athletes at the time. She was the Senior Athlete of the Year in 1973. And she went to 3 national tournaments with our volleyball team with her teammates who are in the audience today, and certainly a special time. So let's bring and welcome Rosemary Sorensen Harvey. Welcome. And my first question again will be, what are some of the memories and some of the stories? And you were actually just sharing some stories with us right before we came back on the air. So if you could just share a few of those with us.
Well, you have to remember, it was about 40 years ago, and there weren't many opportunities for athletics and females. When you played sports in high school, that was going to be it unless you went to college. There were no Title IX, there was no scholarships, there was no recruiting. So all of us came up to be teachers or have some, education here, and we had to try out for the teams every season. There was no guarantee that you were going to make the team. And I had a lovely, lovely experience. The camaraderie was the best. I have lifelong friends, and they're in the audience, and when you go back, your memories, it seems like yesterday. So take that with you. I especially enjoyed, we did go to national tournaments. You had to understand that we had to beg for money because it wasn't in the budget. We weren't expected to make the national tournaments. And there were no divisions then. So, when we went to Miami-Dade and Brigham Young University, we were playing teams from all over the country. They were D1. Here we are at D3, and yes, we were like, oh, amazed, but we held our own, and it was quite the experience. Back on campus, as far as uniforms, we made do. The uniforms that we got for volleyball look strangely like secondhand ones from the soccer team. We were all laced up. And did we have new sneakers? No, we had Converse sneakers, and we had to give them in at the end of the season and transfer them over to the basketball team. So, you know, and also transportation. The volleyball team, when we had away games, we used minivans. There wasn't enough room in the minivans for us all to go, so some members had to stay back. So, you know, it was the experience, you know, but really the camaraderie that went along with everything. We got to travel, and back then, people, you know, were lucky to come up to school. I came up here sight unseen. Besides the travel in New York and, you know, with the 2 nationals, with the softball team, we went to Bermuda. And it was like we got off the plane and we were invited into a wedding reception. You know, so that was quite the experience. And then we found that we were playing under the lights and we were being broadcast on the radio. So, you know, I just had a great experience here, and I can only wish the same for all of you.
Is there anyone that you'd like to thank, any of the coaches that you have? Because we actually, you mentioned some of the names of some of the coaches, and they're legends here, so can you...
Well, I'd like to thank my family and my friends that were able to make it up from the teams, Chris and Quinny and Marilyn, and for all the support. And like I said, with the teams, it just feels like yesterday. June Fontana was able to meet us last night, and again, it seems like yesterday. In terms of coaches, I'd like to especially thank Dr. Kingsley, Linda Matthews, and especially Carol Blazina, who, as you can see, was a multi-sport coach. Power volleyball was just getting underway, and she was just an inspiration to all of us. And I especially want to thank all my teammates from all the teams, but especially volleyball, because again, we were not expected to go to nationals, and there weren't divisions back then. So without them, I would not be here. And special thoughts and prayers for Elaine Tortino, who recently passed away. I had the utmost pleasure of playing with her.
Thank you. The next gentleman we have, last night at our dinner, he was sitting at his table, and it was amazing who he was sitting with, because it was Don Jester, who's Brian Jester's dad, who's in our Hall of Fame. He was the high scorer on his team. It was George's brother-in-law, Don's brother-in-law, George Wetmore, who was the top scorer on his team from the 40s. And this guy was the top scorer on his team from the 60s. So it was like connecting the generations with 3 different guys who were the top scorers and shooters on their team. And it was really special to see them just talking about the memories that they had playing back then. This gentleman, again, outstanding basketball player in the early 60s, played 3 years for us. Sharpshooter, he still holds, 50 years later, he still holds our single season record for free throw percentage, which is amazing. He could probably give lessons to Dwight Howard, because we all know that he can't shoot free throws. So you may have another profession teaching guys how to shoot free throws. Let's welcome to the stage Tom Nuttall. Welcome, sir. Have a seat. So I would say that usually, if you're a sharpshooter, you've got to have a sharp eye. And I would really like you to share with this crowd your story of how you developed into such an outstanding free throw shooter with really what we would consider probably a disability.
well, like we have one good eye, so
I lost the vision of my eye when I was 8 years old, and I guess I was lucky it happened so early. I just naturally adjusted. I didn't know I wasn't supposed to play basketball because I had no depth perception. I didn't even know what depth perception was when I was 8 years old. So, and fortunately, no one ever told me that I couldn't do it. No one ever said, do something else, don't play basketball. But I do need to bring some clarification to this undefeated record that the faculty had in the intramural basketball. I mean, it's true, but there's an asterisk. When I was a freshman, I was a transfer student, so according to NCAA rules, I had to sit out a year, so I played intramurals on a team called the Steiners. I'm not sure what that represented, but we played the faculty, and they were very good, and we gave them a very good game. But starting in the beginning of the second half, everybody in our team fouled out. One right after the other. 5 fouls are gone, 5 fouls are gone. With more than 10 minutes left of the game, we had 2 players, myself and a guy named Jeff O'Neill, against the faculty who had 5 and then 4 more on the bench. So they won. And I'm not suggesting the faculty had any undue influence over the officials. But things were all above board, but I would like to see an asterisk put in there. And then there is one story I would like to share with you. One of the great things about playing sports is you learn lessons, if you pay attention. Lessons that apply not only to sport, but to real life. And I learned 2 lessons on one day on a Saturday in October of 1962. And I can tell you for a fact that's 51 years ago. I taught math most of my life. The basketball team was going up to Syracuse for a scrimmage. And we were very excited about it because they were going to take us to a football game after the scrimmage. And at that time, Syracuse was one of the best football teams in the country. They had the future Heisman Trophy Hall of Famer running back named Ernie Davis. And so we were thrilled to see him play. It was much more important to us than the scrimmage. So we started the scrimmage at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I was matched up with this guy that I didn't know. Physically, he might have been an inch taller than me, but we were both skinny as rails. Neither one of us could hit 160 pounds so he wasn't physically imposing. So the first time down the court, I had the ball, and I gave him a little head pump, and he went up in the air, and when he came down, I went up and I scored. So going back on defense, I'm feeling pretty good about myself. But I remember being impressed at how high this guy jumped. I mean, I had to wait for a while for him to come down. And so I was matched with this guy for 4 hours. And I never faked him out ever again. The guy turned out to be Dave Ding, who was a 3-time All-American at Syracuse, a perennial All-Pro in the NBA, one of the 50 greatest basketball players who ever lived. And that Saturday morning, Dave Ding taught me 2 lessons. The first is humility. And I tell you, that's the hardest lesson of all to learn. So I felt good after the first 15 seconds of that game, but not for the rest of it. And the second lesson is so simple, but so important. I realized then, if I was going to have any success, I just had to work hard. It's that simple. If you want to get better, you work hard. So that's it. I would like to thank my entire family, going back to my mom and dad. My entire life, I was never met with anything other than support and encouragement, and that really matters. Every teammate I've had, I think any time an individual receives recognition playing team sport, most of the credit there belongs with his teammates. You can't do it alone in a team sport. And Coach Ed Hassler, who recently passed away, I played for Ed his first 3 years at the university, and it was just a privilege knowing the man and an honor to play for him. And of course, I don't know who they are, but the administration and the athletic department, the Hall of Fame, everybody who had something to do with putting on this event. It's just fantastic and very, very much appreciated. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
Well, we get to use the old baseball adage. We're going to get our cleanup hitter now to come and help us finish up our ceremony. Certainly one of our greatest baseball players we've ever had here. His coach is here. One of the gentlemen who threw a no-hitter, he caught his no-hitter, Mr. Roger Weaver, who went on to pitch in the major leagues. I mean, these are the kind of baseball players that we had during the 70s and 80s, and we now are getting some of them back. So this gentleman, all conference, they won 2 SUNY championships, they won a couple of ECAC championships, and he was a catcher. And anybody who knows about baseball, the hardest position is, I mean, you got to kneel down and crouch down for so long, and just, it can be 80, 90 degrees, and this guy did it for 4 years at such a high level. We're going to bring now Mr. Rick Yandoli to the stage. Well, we know you have some stories, and certainly most of your stories pertain to what the life lessons that you've learned through athletics here, and we know we have some student athletes out here that might like to hear some of those stories. If you could share them, please.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm under strict instructions from my children to keep it under 25 minutes, so I'll be as quick as possible. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you for the kind words. I just want to say to everyone in the audience that Jeff and I formed a great little bond this summer. Once I was given that wonderful phone call from Tracy Ranieri, and in our aimless to make sure we would dotting our I's and crossing our T's and giving Jeff everything he needed, we just developed a great line of communication, and we spoke about life's lessons and all the other wonderful stuff associated with it. I have to tell you, this gentleman did a wonderful job in contributing greatly to making this thing happen. You know, oftentimes, wonderful events such as this, the people behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, they often get overlooked. So, Jeff, you just did a great job, man. Really did. As well as Tracy and everyone else. So, the life lessons for my 4 years in Oneonta, we spoke a little bit about last night. I'm from Queens, New York City, and I love baseball since I can remember. I played it my whole life, and I was fortunate enough to play at a great high school, Bryant High School in Queens, and we were always in the semifinals or the city championships. We had a really good program, and I certainly wanted to get to a great program in college. And a good friend of mine who I played high school baseball with, who I played Little League baseball with, Glenn Siegel, who was a hell of a left-hand pitcher. He was a year ahead of me, and he would stay in contact with me, and he said, Rick, knowing you the way I know you, I found baseball in nirvana for you, man. He said, you would not believe the great program, the great schedule, the level of play, the level of commitment, and the great man who runs the program, Coach Axtell. So that's all I needed to hear, and I was able to connect with Coach, and the rest took care of itself. So to Jeff's point, the 4 great years of my life have definitely been at Oneonta State. The life lessons are numerous, and I was so fortunate to play with great guys, and excuse me, and a great coach as well. And, we had a 4-year run that was unreal. I felt like I was playing with the New York Yankees. In fact, Oneonta State was on fire between 73 and 77, still is, but we were a powerful brand, whether it was soccer, whether it was, cross country, whether it was women's sports, whether it was basketball. and baseball and track and field and wrestling. And we were just, we blew it out of the water. We were great. And, you know, we all felt that way about who we represented. So to me, it was a 4-year march from my freshman year to my senior year. It was just a march of continuity to make ourselves great and excel and win as much as we can and represent ourselves as best as we can. And Coach Axtell, you know, when you speak about great leaders, I'm a big fan of great leaders in life. And Coach Axtell is the greatest leader I've ever known, and I've been privileged to be associated with him. But he taught us so much about the game of life and about the game of baseball. But, you know, it sounds a little maybe Pollyanna or maybe corny, but it's not. It's really true. And, you know, it's kind of, I'm going to kind of piggyback on everything that all these wonderful people said prior to myself. But the things that Coach Axtell taught us about persistence and perseverance and work ethic and showing up and being accountable and consequences for your actions and seeing things through and, you know, representing yourself well and playing hard. And at the same time, there's nothing wrong with wanting to win every second of every day. You go for it every second of every day. But you need to, you know, evolve into those necessary behavioral patterns to get yourself there. And so to that point, we showed up in the middle of August. And back in those days, we had a fall season, as no longer exists now, as I know. But we would play 25 games in the fall. We play about 25 to 30 in the spring. And we show up in August, and we work like heck. And the season began, and we had the Albany tournament and a great schedule. Even though we were SUNY in Division III, Coach was astute enough to supplement that schedule with great Division I teams and Division II teams, which made us better, which made us feel better about ourselves, and we beat the heck out of everybody. So it was wonderful. And after the fall season would end mid-October, the weekend would evolve, and the following Monday would happen, and we all had a schedule of where we needed to be to get ready for the spring season. So whether it was underneath the physical science building in the batting cage taking batting practice, whether it was pitchers and catchers showing up at you know, different places, on campus, in the gym, on the field, underneath another building, it was outfielders, it was infielders, it was, you know, the continuity of the program in play made us the great ball players we were, the great teams we were. It's all about practice, it's all about perfection, it's all about, you know, just doing a lot of what you do. The great book Outlier speaks to it. The more you do something well, the better you're going to get at it. And then we go back in December for our winter recess. We come back in January, and the same situation evolved, the same level of practice. And then we go out in the parking lot in February, snow, rain. We were blind to it. We didn't care. We didn't know. We thought it was July because Coach had us believing that. And it made us great. And then the spring would begin. We go on a southern trip, and we play all Division I schools. We play 7 games in 6 days. University of Virginia, Virginia Tech, VMI. Then we beat everybody. And, you know, and if we didn't, they were close games. And, you know, being young and being on the road, we felt like we were professionals. We were telling the story last night. Getting meal money, having $3 in your hand, and going to McDonald's. And being able to order something. We felt wonderful about it. We felt great. And, you know, to the point that was made before about the 70s being lean and mean in terms of economic times, certainly within the SUNY conference and the state institutions. But Coach made it happen, and we didn't know that things were lean and mean. We didn't know about the color of our uniforms or the amount of meal money we had. We just felt like we were just rising above everything else, you know, to get to where we had to be. So, man, it was a great experience for me. I'm privileged and fortunate to have played for Coach Axtell, to have great teammates. You know, I wouldn't be here without Coach and the great teammates who played with me, and it was an honor to be, you know, at this great school. And the only regret I had, and I'll never forget it, it was my last game as a senior. We're in the ECAC tournament. Twice we were in the ECAC tournament in my 4 years. And Bobby Degnan and Danny remember this. We played at RIT. We played at the Rochester Red Wings minor league stadium, which, as many of you may know, is a AAA stadium for the Baltimore Orioles. And the biggest regret I had was that it was my last game. Because, man, I wanted to play for another 20 years here. And, you know, all great things have to come to an end, and then you make it a launching pad to other great things in life. So, you know, it was just, we were fearless. We were a great team. We had a great bunch of guys. And Mr. Bailey kept us on the field as well. I know he kept me on the field a couple of times when I had no right to be there. He took an injury and he made it go away. So just great times. Great times.
If there's anybody that you'd like to thank at this time.
Thank you, Jeff. I'd be remiss if the list is endless, but my wonderful wife of 25 years, Judy, who I love deeply, and my great support. Thank you for being here today. My three wonderful children, Christy, Kayla, and Rick, I love them to death. Thank you for being here. My great dear friends and teammates who made it their business to be here today. Roger Weaver, I was fortunate. I caught some really good pictures in high school. Some guys got drafted high. And we had a pitching staff second to none. When I was here with Mike Kalanich, with Glenn Siegel, with Tommy Bean, with Frankie Galco, this guy over here, nobody threw a baseball like him. And nobody hit a baseball like him. And of course, he played for the Detroit Tigers for 6 years. And Coach Axtell had a great line last night when we talked about the fact that Roger would be here. Coach said, I hope he brings a slider. and Roger always brought a slider. It was great. So, Roger, thank you for being here, man. And Denny Cole was wonderful. Wife Cindy. Denny was a great ball player. He was a year younger than me, played center field, great catcher. It's all conference, and he could run like the wind, man, and he's a great friend. And then, of course, Bobby Degnan, one of my dearest friends in the world, with his wonderful wife, Kathy, great outfielder, power, all conference, and to all my other teammates who couldn't make it. And, of course, last but not least, Coach Axtell, I love you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for all the great things you've done for me as a ball player and helping me help making me the man that I hope to be always. And Mrs. Axtell, thank you for coming, and Jody and John, and I know Jimmy is down south, and also the committee. Coach Flewelling was a great guy, and everyone else on the committee, thank you for making this happen for me. Thanks a lot.
Oh, what a tremendous group of individuals. Can we have one last round of applause for all of them, please?